How's it going, everyone? This episode of the podcast is sponsored by 101 Hemp, the makers of premium, full-spectrum, raw CBD oil products. Now, I know a lot of us are more than a little stressed out over what's happening in the world today, and anything that helps us cope with that stress a little easier is always welcome. That's why I take the Chill X raw CBD oil from 101 Hemp, because along with the calming properties of that raw CBD, that CBDA, it's also blended with the highest quality of organic passion flower that accentuates that chill factor and helps me with overall relaxation. Now you can get that in their award-winning blueberry flavor along with their new tropical bliss, just to name a few. So go over to 101hemp.org, order yourself some premium, full-spectrum raw CBD oil products, and don't forget to use coupon code IMGS25 to get 25% off of that order. All right, now let's start the show. Brothers and sisters, welcome back. This is the NYC Grow Show. I'm your host, Alex, and I want to thank you once again for taking the time to watch and to listen to the show. I truly do appreciate it. Again, I have Rodney Medina with me on the mic. Rodney, buddy, how you doing, man? It's been a long time.
I'm doing good. Thank you. It has been a long time.
It's good to actually see someone. You know how hard it is to get people to come on the show because of COVID?
Yeah.
Everybody, which is fine. I get it, you know. But I'm not a big fan of Zoom. I don't like using Zoom. I've talked about it. People are probably bored of hearing it. But yeah, it's a bad sound quality. I don't dig it. I don't like to use it if I don't have to. Anyways, good to see you, my man.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, for sure. So real quick, before we really get into the show, I just want to let everybody know that Amazon Music now has podcasts. And you can find the In My Grow Show on Amazon.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. We're everyone's picking up podcasts, man. Amazon's doing it. There's some other big company coming online out in India. I think it's called Ghana. Anyways, man. But everyone's doing it. Everyone's got a podcast. When are you gonna get your podcast up, bro?
Very soon. I'm gonna build a set and try to establish a look, kind of an outdoor look, and something similar to where we're at, but. It's coming.
Okay. Right on. So let's see. All right. Let's do the strain of the week. But before that, so you see this little plant right here? See this it's a little bonsai.
Bonsai.
So I don't know, man. Maybe like 2 months ago. Must have been 2 months ago. I think I put up a video about. No, I can't see. I put up a video about, using a cloner, and I made some cuts, and I put them in the cloner. It all looked great. But
I remember that.
I didn't use any cloning solutions. And I hadn't cloned like that in a long time. I figured, it's going to take like 12 days. I'll start to root. It's going to be really cool. No, it took like 20 days, 22 days for it to start to root. So they started to root, put them in pots. And then I just forgot about them, left them outside. And next thing I know, I looked down, and they're starting to flower. And I was like, well, fuck. I don't want to take them back to flower. It looks good. It's a little nugget. And in a few weeks, you'll be able to, chop it down and dry it and clip it. And yeah, there you go.
That's some focused growing right there.
That's
usually you spend 10 minutes on a plant, the ones I have over here. But that's like a 30-second guy right there.
You're looking over it. You're like, nope. All right, looks good. All right, see? But
can't mess that up.
Yeah, it's real funny. I've got these two little pots. I've got these two little. Just little nugs growing, but trip out. So also when I made the video, just off topic, when I made a video about sprouting seeds, so I'd sprouted a bunch of different seeds, and a few of them were a couple of my own strain that I had made, and I had planted all the other ones, gave some of them out, but I had two left, and I didn't know what to do with them, so I wound up putting both of them in a 3-gallon pot. I figured, fuck it, they'll just finish out the season there, right? This doesn't have that long to go. But it turned out that one of them was a male and the other one turned out to be a female. So I just left them in there, and right now I've got them pushed off to the other end of the garden where the breeze doesn't fly towards the other plants in flower. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping the pollen, it shouldn't drift over there, but I'm just going to pollinate those two plants. It was just an incredible thing that one of them they both wound up male or female.
Wow.
And so that's going to be kind of cool.
Be careful, though. You know how those males are. They like to get around.
This is what I'm saying. That I'm just letting them, you know what? He just started dropping pollen today, so I'm going to give it another 1 or 2 days and then spray everything down. Cut them off and then spray everything with water because that'll settle all the pollen so it doesn't drift away. And then more than likely put her in a closet, in a grow closet, because there isn't enough time right now in the season for her to go full term with those seeds and those seeds to be viable. You know what I mean? So, I'm going to have to put her in the closet and finish out her, I think she goes 9 weeks. 9 weeks of flowers so those seeds can actually mature.
Okay.
You know? But,
yeah. No, I appreciate everything you I learned so much from you, and I thank you for the help you've given me with my plants, which is the first time I've been growing. And,
no, you know what? You're getting some great color on those.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's a lot of work. Even just 2 plants. I can't imagine having 10, 12 plants, I come out here and I spend 10 minutes on each of those plants, just going through, checking out the little colas and inspecting them and checking for anything that might disturb the plant. And it's worth it because I do find things that I have to address. But it does give me some time just really of peace, which is really cool, which is what the plant is about, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And you wake up in the morning, you kind of get excited. You want to come out and spend some time with the plants. I feel kind of weird.
So my daughter asked, so my daughter asked me, she tells me, she thinks I'm kind of weird because I'll go out there and just stare at them. She's like, why are you staring at them? I'm like, because I'm just watching them grow. I'm looking at them, I'm touching them, I'm feeling them, because that's what I do. That's what every grower does. She's like, oh, man, well.
And they know you because I've played in my grow show while I'm sitting there going through the plants of the Jodri episode. I definitely wanted them to meet Kevin because Kevin has been instrumental in my cannabis life. The short time that I've known him, he's so knowledgeable.
That dude,
the guy's incredible. I've spent a couple days with him up at his place. And he is just a fountain of knowledge. You just want to hear him talk about everything he knows.
And it's not just that he's a fountain of knowledge, but he's real giving about his time and that knowledge. I was talking to him and just blown away about how he approaches that. Because in his mind, he was telling me that he's trying to share everything he knows because basically once he's dead and gone, all of that knowledge goes with him.
It's gone, yeah.
He wants to be able for people to build on what he's known and what he's learned, and that just blew me away. That was amazing.
Yeah, and
talking to that guy was a good time.
I remember watching a presentation he did in Mexico. I think it was in Mexico, and he had taken some plants with him. Maybe it was here. I can't imagine he would have taken plants to Mexico. Anyway, he took some small clones with him. I think he took about 12. And the story he was telling was about how he came to create that particular strain, right? And at the end of the presentation, he says, and I brought 12 of those clones with me. And you could hear the gasp like, wow.
Everybody thought it's going to be a lottery.
Yeah, and he goes, I'm going to give them to 12 of you. And everybody started clapping. And he goes, but promise me. He goes, everybody exchange information here. You 12 need to make clones of those and pass them on to everybody else.
Wow.
Here. And that's the kind of guy Kevin is. And he has said that, hey, when I'm gone, he goes, we spent so many years underground in the, under the trees, hiding our information, hiding our knowledge because we couldn't tell anybody what we did. Now it's our time to get it out. So cannabis needs more people like that, willing to share their information. There's a lot of people who don't, because they think, oh, well, this is my method. And that's unfortunate because cannabis is a well-intentioned plant. It's a healer. Why not express what you know and your knowledge so that the world can learn more?
Yeah, that's a trip, man. A lot of people in the industry, they go through with this like famine mentality, that they have to keep everything close to them because there isn't enough to go around, enough money or enough fans or enough whatever. And people get really weird, man. People get really strange about things like that. But shout out to Kevin. He's an awesome guy.
Yep. Thank you, Kevin.
Now let's do the strain of the week, and today I'm gonna talk about the Mandarin Glue. I'm gonna fold my notes here, man. All right. Now, the internet says the Mandarin Glue is a cross between the New York Diesel, a Mandarin cut, which is probably just like an orange phenotype, possibly. Cross with the Gorilla Glue number 4, or, again, it's the internet, depending on who you're reading, who you're listening to. It's a cross of the original glue, not the Gorilla Glue. Whatever. Anyways, that's the lineage. It did have a nice, like, really fruity, sweet taste to it and aroma. Well, check it out, man. Look, let me see what you got there. That's the Mandarin. The taste was about the same. It's a little citrusy, but at the end it had that, like, dirty fuel kind of taste to it. And it got me really
rich.
It got me really fucking high. Even though it was a 19, it got me really just it was a pretty heavy hitter for me. I liked it. So if you see the Mandarin, what was it? The Mandarin Glue. Pick it up. And you know what? This came from Autumn Brand. Autumn Brand
Santa Barbara.
Farms. Yeah, so
it's local.
I need to give a shout out to Autumn Brands because they put out a really consistent product, a really good flower, and they don't pay me to say this. I'm just a fan of their product, especially lately. I've been picking up a lot of it. Not just that it's a good product made well, but that it's a pretty inexpensive eighth. I pick up an eighth for $30, which out here eighths can be $45, $50 for a decent eighth. But this for a $30 eighth, it's a really good buy. So shout out to Autumn Brands.
I'm glad that you say that because here in our area we have a different market. And the dispensaries are opening up, and I hope that the dispensaries that locally that do open up take that into consideration, that you want to have that lower cost cannabis available, especially for people who are in fixed incomes, veterans, things like that, because when you start recommending products to them and you start realizing how much it costs. Like if they want some topicals and some flour, you're up into $200 a month. Yeah. And that's, that could be a big slice of their Social Security check.
And so it's not covered by any insurance.
Exactly. So it's really important that I'm glad that you're recognizing the fact that these are lower cost products, but the quality is good. Yeah. And that's what you want to be able to pass on to them. And the thing is also about Autumn Brands,
there are some other, they're called, I don't know if they call them bargain brands but there are some other brands like Dime Bag puts out good product, but they're not manicured as well, even though they're a little bit cheaper than the Autumn brands. But still, the manicure, the bag appeal, the look of it.
Looks great.
And I'm going to post up pictures during this just to see because, it's hard. Yeah, it's just hard to show you. But anyways, good on you guys, Autumn Brands, man. Good. The Mandarin Glue tastes great. That Brothers and Sisters is the strain of the week. So check it out, pick it up. Let me know what you think. Now we're going to do the report from the Cannabis front line. And, I was going to start off with the story about getting ready for the government to start voting on the MORE Act. And when I put the show notes together, I start about Monday, Tuesday. I'll, bookmark stuff and go back to it later. And, the whole bit was that, are they going to actually vote on it? Because it was supposed to happen next week. And it turns out, as of yesterday, no, they're not going to vote on it. They have pushed it to after the election, which is, whatever. They put. I heard a couple of different reasons. One, they didn't want to have like a cannabis vote before they actually had any COVID relief because, I don't know, it looked one-sided. But here's what gets me. Here's what I think is truly, a lot of things I think is truly bullshit about that. But is the fact that when the MORE Act came out, and this was during like a year ago, Kamala Harris was running for president, and she was either one of the main sponsors or one of the early sponsors of it.
She is one of the main sponsors.
And they were touting it like, Kamala Harris, she's turned a corner. She's going to, she's all about, just cannabis reform. And just to do a switch like that to where they say, no, they're going to wait, it just seems like it was, again, just a big propaganda push to get a lot of people who would vote for cannabis on the side of the Democratic, nominee. It's just, I just think it was bullshit the way they had to cancel it.
Yeah, and the House is controlled by the Democrats now, so maybe that's something that they want to save should they win the White House, they can roll that in as part of a flagship.
I mean, well,
topic.
we would hope, right? We would hope, but I mean, Biden has already come out saying he's just going to decriminalize,
Sure.
which again is bullshit, because decriminalization, it just puts people back in the system. It just
Sure.
keeps people in the system. Why do you want to be an incrementalist? Just legalize it already, or deschedule it. Get out of the way. Let the states form their own laws, but deschedule it. Schedule it the way alcohol is scheduled, and then we'll go from there. That's all I need the government to do.
Mm-hmm.
But this whole let's decriminalize, oh, it's going to be great because we're going to decriminalize and then make it legal for medical. And then, we're going to have expungement, but we're also going to make people take rehab classes if you're busted with cannabis. That just seems...
And you just said it right there. In the meantime, we're still going to bust people for cannabis.
Oh, yeah, in the meantime...
We're still going to pull them over because they smell like it, and we're going to pull it out. They're going to put them in the system.
So, one thing we need to know about odor and cannabis. Odor alone is not subject for the cops to search your vehicle. If the cops say, I smell weed, say, yeah, that's probably because there is weed in the car.
Sure.
But smell alone is not a reason for them to search your car. It is not probable cause.
Right.
So if the cop says, well, I smell weed, I'm going to search it, you're like, you don't have probable cause. You can search it, but whatever he finds can be thrown out of court.
But people don't know that.
People don't know that.
And
and the thing is...
they're still living on old thinking, so
and also
they're not going to call the law enforcement out on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, as long as they say, hey, I smell weed, well, yeah, but good thing it's not probable cause.
Do you like it?
Yeah. I mean, I know, I got it down the street, but it's not probable cause. So don't
Right.
let the cops, don't let them. If they're just going to say,
Yeah.
oh, I smell weed, say, good.
Right,
Right. Get a warrant for something else.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm running out of spit.
Well, that's one of the things that we brought up with, I know we're going to be talking about social equity today, is law enforcement and bringing them into the dialogue, because a lot of what's being addressed locally with social equity and social equity components and legal ordinances doesn't even have to do with law enforcement, but they need to be part of that discussion because they need to know what is going on, and we don't want people to get pulled over for just odor alone, and because I'm sure there's officers out there who really aren't familiar with
That's
a
a thing also, that there are officers out there that aren't aware of the law, and they do need, well, of course they need to be informed. They need to be brought in because they're still a stakeholder in the conversation.
Sure.
They're still a component of the legalizing of the market of everything. They still have to, because you'll hear cops all the time say they don't care. They don't care. They're not a fan of weed. They're just enforcing the law. So that's the thing. If we educate them on the law, then they know what they can and can't enforce.
Mm-hmm.
And real quick, just so you know, here in California, there's like 3 different bodies that regulate cannabis. It is the BCC, the CDFA, and the CDPH. Okay, the BCC I know is the Bureau of Cannabis Control. I don't know what the other 2 alphabets are, but
let's say what are they again?
Okay, the BCC, the Bureau of Cannabis Control.
BCC.
Okay, the CDFA. Do you know what
CDFA? Probably the California Department of Agriculture.
Okay, and then
I'm
the CDPH.
PH would be because cannabis is a health product. Considered a health product. I think that may be one of the
like the pharmaceutical, or
no, it's not pharmaceutical. It's I know I can't remember. It's the only product, by the way, that is regulated by 3 different entities.
I know.
Because of where the different categories it falls in. Yeah, look it up real quick.
Yeah, man, we got Google.
Yeah, and we have time too.
Let's steal Google.
No commercials either.
Yeah, let's steal Google.
What was it again?
What do we got?
CD?
CDFA. All right.
CDFA. Okay, so I'm thinking that's the California Department of
let's see.
Food and Agriculture.
California. Yeah, you're right. California Department of Food or Agriculture.
Okay,
all right.
okay.
Now let's
CDPH?
try the CDPH. Let's see.
California Department of.
I'll put Rodney on Jeopardy.
Let's see. I would. It has to do something. I think with health.
All right. Let's see. Public health, maybe.
California. Yeah, probably it is public health because it's being it's considered since it has medicinal properties.
Right. Let's see. It says here CDPH. CDPH.gov. Come on. What do you guys regulate? So at any rate, all 3 of those entities, all 3 of those departments got together and launched a unified licensing search platform. Which means you only have to go, Public Health, California Department of Public Health.
That's right.
Yeah, so you only have to go to one platform to look up regulations.
That's great.
And it is.
It's hard enough just to follow the BCC, and then you have to throw in the other two.
Well, I know. Then you got and then you have to go to each one and make sure you've got everything you need for all of them.
Right.
So let's see. You can go to search.cannabis.ca.gov, so you can get that unifying licensing search platform. Yeah, you should check it out. It'll be cool.
I foresee one entity, hopefully someday, that manages all of that, because right now that's just, you can imagine all the paperwork or the people and the money that's spent just to oversee cannabis in 3 different departments, which they're all doing their other thing. They're, what they're specifically geared to do. Well,
and as far as I understood it, like there was, cannabis legislation, the AB 2028, that kind of went through the House last couple of weeks, that kind of gutted, CBD and hemp products. But anyways, one of the things that was supposed to do, and it's a sad thing that it failed, was that it was supposed to consolidate some of these offices so there aren't so many out there, because there's also 2 other ones that regulate hemp, I believe. So, that's just it just seems like a lot of paperwork, seems like a lot of redundancies. Why are 2 people doing the same job?
Sure.
So there you go. You can go check out, if you just want to, get bored and want to geek out, you can go look up some regulations. Or, you can learn all the regulations and print a new business card.
Yeah, become a compliance expert, which they are needed. Every dispensary needs one.
This is where you can start.
Yeah, every processor, every manufacturer, they all have compliance. Yeah.
Hey, maybe we should do like a compliance segment every week. Yeah,
that would be interesting, because compliance that's really what you're paying for when you go to a dispensary. You're paying for the fact that this cannabis is being governed in a sense, but followed, tracked. The track and trace program. That it's quality cannabis. It's not. It doesn't have the pesticides. It's being tested, which when you buy it from your usual connect, you don't know where the hell they get it. You don't know what the hell they're putting into it.
You don't know what the THC is, because sometimes you want to make edibles, but you got to smoke it first.
Right.
If you get it from the legacy, from the black market, you got to smoke it and be like, oh, all right, I know more or less what it's going to feel like.
Yeah. So that remember that when you're feel like you're paying more than you should, that's what you're paying for. Safety. You really are paying for safety. And quality.
Oh, excuse me. Now, speaking of safety and quality and regulated market, so I want to switch over. Oh, brothers and sisters, by the way, that is the end of the, what were we on? Oh, yeah, the report from the Cannabis Front Line. There are links in the show notes for all of those, so you can read them at your leisure, look them up. Again, you can become a compliance officer in no time with that search.
I like your idea of the what would you say? Weekly.
A weekly update, yeah. Just so got to pick something, right? Okay,
there's so many things. I mean, you have packaging. We have a local company that was just called out for some packaging issues. They were not.
What were they doing?
And it's a pretty big one. I don't even want to mention who they are.
Well, don't mention who they are. But what were they doing?
They were misrepresenting some of their product. It was.
Were they saying it was higher?
No, they were saying that it was. They were saying that their concentrate was a particular type of concentrate, but it really was not, because it was. They were just inferring it, but it left them open to not have to it be what they were saying it was. So they
were just using like word salad to get around it.
Right, and it was clearly on the label. And there's one word, I can't remember what the word was that they used. It was like saying virtually clean, kind of that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
And
almost pure.
Yeah, almost pure, and it was not. So it kept. So, but people who were buying it thought that was. Yeah, but because of that one word they had in their labeling, it put them in a bad place, in a bad spot. So now they've lost a little bit of luster, but. They're very well known, and I think they'll weather the storm.
If they got a good marketing team, I'm sure they'll be okay. Yeah, what are you gonna do? And yeah, again, that's why you have regulation.
Sure.
That's why you have regulation.
That's why compliance is so important. And, you know, the BCC and the fans, you know, or the customers they're not going to be patient for that type of deceit.
Well, and plus there's too many products on the market, dude. There's too many other companies that are fighting for that limited shelf space that, you know, if you cheat, if the customer feels like you're not giving them what they're asking for, what they're paying for, they very quickly move on, dude.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really easy to lose market share from your brand because of that, because there are so many players out there and that shelf space is limited.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I was going to transition into, so Jim Belushi has a show out called Growing Belushi. And we talked about it. And it's an okay show, in my opinion. It puts cannabis in a positive light. I dig that. You know, but he did one in Colombia. And you were actually down there for that. Because he was in that episode. I think it was the last one. He was hunting for a certain type of seed. So were you there for that hunt with him, or? I was
the producer of the segments down there. I brought the crew together for him, and I was already down there for an expo for Canaciencia, and I had heard he was coming. Actually, Steve D'Angelo had told me that he was coming, and so Steve was the one. Thank you, Steve. Steve was the one who referred me to Jim, and so I set up a crew for him to do the reality show down there.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So, and it was interesting to see how it all came together. You know, you always hear, well, reality shows are scripted. I can guarantee you this one was not. Well, he was shooting. It was not scripted. He was really flying on the seat of his pants. So it was authentic in a sense that everything that he was doing down there, he was not scripting. I mean, he probably had a concept of what they were going to do, and I know that because I introduced him to some people who turned out to come out, who ended up coming out in the program. Uh-huh. So, and that's the way cannabis is, as you know, in any industry. You introduce somebody to one person, and that person usually has connections there locally. So he was able to go out to some grows and talk to some legislators and just different people who had information about cannabis. And I like the show in the sense that it's opening America up to what we want to be, and that's cannabis being discussed in the mainstream. And what was really cool is that he really basically used that show to introduce his new brand.
Yeah, he was really smart about it. I liked the way he did introduce his brand and like hype it up.
Sure.
With that last episode of finding those,
Mongo beef.
Yeah, because in the show, you know, he really hyped up those strains as, these are some land races that are well known, that are going to be the cornerstone of this crop. And again, did a great job at introducing it to everyone, and also because of his recognition, it really does put a different kind of angle on the conversation of cannabis.
Sure.
You know, because I didn't see, and this was a really interesting thing though, I didn't see anyone smoking cannabis on that show until maybe like a half a second on the last episode. Because I was sitting there watching, and I was like, wait, I haven't seen anybody really smoking weed on that show.
Right.
Which says a lot about him actually understanding, or his producers, whoever put it together, understanding what an actual square audience is going to sit through. When I say square, I mean people who aren't into cannabis, who, you know, just have never really tried drugs. Their opinion of drugs is everything, I don't know, man, that the government has told them. But, you know, they weren't putting it in people's faces as far as like...
Sure.
You know, trying to go with any kind of stigmas of, well, oh yeah, look, these long hairs are nothing but potheads, and this is what they're doing. This is how it was. In that aspect, I thought it was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'd watch another season. I don't know. It's just not a little too campy for me.
Yeah, it was.
But,
I liked the concept of going to Colombia and finding the landrace strains because it does educate people about cannabis, where it comes from, and how different strains come from different areas. So then you start introducing the culture. So that's what I did appreciate about the show, and the fact that they're just talking about cannabis. So I think for the person who just wants to learn a little bit, for cannabis heads, they're probably not going to be that interested in it.
No, I mean it was again, if you're a fan of Belushi and you like watching, because I like watching people just grow weed.
Sure.
There were a lot of things that were cool to see. Especially there was the one episode where he like killed his whole crop. Yeah. A lot of people especially, want to put out a certain kind of image of So what I was saying was it was just really good to see that, he just humanized himself about it. He's all like, look, I don't know what I'm doing exactly. I'm still listening to other people, learning from other people. And, again, I like watching people grow weed, and I like the fact that he normalizes it. And I'm glad that it's on streaming because, I don't have to wait for every whatever Wednesday night to sit there and have to try to catch it because
sure.
I wouldn't have.
It was 3 episodes. It
was 3 episodes, then, wasn't it?
Three 1-hour episodes.
Yeah.
And on Discovery, and he made that connection with his brother John, who OD'd, and that was kind of the overall feeling of the show was that he wants to grow cannabis because he knows it's a healer, and if his brother had smoked more cannabis, he'd probably still be alive today because he was into the hard stuff.
Sure.
And so he that really that lives in him as far as that feeling. And the grower that he had, what's his name? Captain Jack.
Yeah, Captain Jack.
He was actually the pot dealer on the Saturday Night Live.
Oh, that's right. They were saying that. Huh, yeah.
Behind the scenes, he was the guy everybody went to for weed.
He was the weed guy.
Captain Jack, yeah.
Dude, and people forget how talented actually Jim Belushi is as an actor. Because I just watched again Salvador like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Motherfucker was awesome in that. I don't know. When the last time you haven't seen it. It's an Oliver Stone movie.
Oh, okay.
Dude, yeah, that guy can. Yeah, he's a good actor, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, trip out. If you get a chance, check out the show. It's called Growing Belushi.
Growing Belushi. You can watch it on Discovery Go. It's on demand, and I think anybody who's into cannabis should watch it because it's just it's something that we need to keep talking about and bringing it mainstream, and that's what I appreciate about it the most is that it's on it was mainstream and Discovery. Not on Netflix where it's subscription.
Kind of hidden, yeah, right, exactly.
It's out there. You could literally find it on your cable box, and so that's a good step. I don't care who does it, as long as it's being talked about. It's a positive thing for cannabis.
Yeah, it was. Good on him, man. That was cool. But now, speaking of celebrities, brother, I've been seeing you, or at least what you said at a certain city council meeting and quite a few news outlets. And a big reason is because, folks, okay, more and more municipalities are starting to, become comfortable with the idea of accepting cannabis, of accepting cannabis as an industry. And I know we're all excited about it, but at the same time, with that excitement, let's not give everything away, because this is still something that belongs. Man, come on, how many of us have been put in jail, or even just hassled by the cops because of weed? And now, municipalities, because they're trying to fill the coffers. They're trying to really, what seems like, gentrify a lot of the cannabis industry into just letting those who they think deserve it to have it legally, or at least to be a part of being owners of it. And Oxnard is right now currently suffering the same thing. Oxnard's a small little coastal town in California. An
hour north of one of the largest cannabis markets in the world, Los Angeles.
An hour north of LA. I love it. I was raised here in Oxnard. But Rodney, what's going on there, brother? What's up? Because I know you have a specific stake in there because, well, yeah, what's going on there, first of all?
Well, Oxnard is turning legal, and they started on the last election, they voted to they voted, the people of the city voted that any cannabis money could be geared towards needs of the city. So that was kind of the introduction to people, to telling them, hey, we're gonna start allowing cannabis here. So we just want to let you know that, or give you the opportunity to vote for the fact that any cannabis revenue that we tax, we will be able to put it into the general fund.
Like how we're going to be able to use it.
They'll be able to use it. I guess, that was I guess you have to vote on something like that, or maybe that was just the way to introduce the people or warm them up to the fact that cannabis,
getting them comfortable with
right,
cannabis.
And everybody overwhelmingly supported it. I guess if they wouldn't have supported it, that would have put cannabis on a even slower roll to legality here in the city.
Sure.
But so that warmed everybody up. So now they have opened up licensing to 8 retail, and they have a number of manufacturing and processing licenses as well. So what my stake is here is that, I'm everybody who's involved in cannabis hopefully knows that the reason prohibition existed was because Harry Anslinger criminalized cannabis back in the 1930s. Yep. And so everybody knows the story. In case you don't, it might be redundant, but it was based on race, and it was purely criminalized so that they could detain and deport Mexicans, because the Mexicans were the ones who were bringing cannabis up from Mexico out when they were escaping all the violence of the revolution.
Well, it's also that Anslinger was just taking over the office of alcohol prohibition just as prohibition was ending.
Sure. So, he needed something.
So, yeah, Anslinger needed a new enemy.
Sure.
He needed to justify all of his staff, all of that money, his position. So he's all like, hey, what about marijuana? Which he, clung onto the name marijuana because he couldn't really say, hey, we're going to make cannabis illegal, because cannabis wasn't
had been used. Yeah, it was already being used as a medicinal product. And so with that, comes and then of course what Nixon did with the war on drugs in the 60s and 70s, and then Reagan, and there's always been this law that has affected disproportionately, unfortunately, people of color. And anytime the government wanted to quell a certain part of the population that they felt was getting out of hand, or who they wanted to control, they would instill these laws. So now with cannabis legalization comes the term social equity. And social equity is basically the idea that we recognize what the past has, what prohibition was based on, so that now when they start to legalize it through social equity ordinances within a municipality, you want to, in a sense, enforce that part of that business or that industry there in that local community or city is reserved for minorities, so that minorities can have a seat at the table when it comes to being owners, managers, investors, because, as you know, it's more challenging for minorities to go get money, big money like that's needed for cannabis. And you can't go to a traditional bank for cannabis. No. So they don't have the deep pockets or the resources. So a lot of the people who are riding and profiting from the cannabis industry right now are big conglomerates or people with vast amounts of money.
And not just that, but they have no real roots in the community where they start setting up.
Sure.
They don't have any responsibility.
Right.
They don't have any responsibility to just the surroundings.
Right. And, Oxnard here, we're predominantly minority. I think 70% Hispanic, Latino. And what we're fighting for here with social equity is to reserve a number of those licenses of the 8 for local minority ownership, and to reserve them. Not only just there are a lot of different ordinances and components to social equity, but that's one of the basic ones, is just reserve some of those licenses for minorities. And I introduced the concept of social equity before a city council had even started discussing cannabis as legalization here. I presented it to the Planning Commission when the Planning Commission was just about to propose where they felt these areas of legalization should occur for manufacturing and for retail. So I presented to the Planning Commission, said, look, this is a concept of social equity. I introduced them, and I think 4 of the 6 were people of color, and they had never heard of social equity before. And so upon my suggestion, they did pass their proposal to the city council with the caveat that, yes, we will do this, but you have to include an element of social equity. So it was a victory, victory for social equity, a victory for Oxnard, because, we are minority. Now that it went into city council, and that was over a year ago. So as you may know, whenever cities turn the corner into legality, they have consultants, and they have maybe a couple people, a couple staff members dedicated to. Again,
consultants coming from out of town.
Have
no idea what's going on locally.
In the local.
They think, hey, I've done this before in Colorado and Michigan. Let me go into Oxnard and do it.
Right. And so it took them a year to finally come up with their proposal for what Oxnard would be. And they had one local workshop where they invited the stakeholders of the community, or it was open to anybody, could come in and talk about what their vision was for Oxnard as a legal cannabis city. I went to that workshop, and it was not representative of our community. There were outsiders, and it was the outsiders who pretty much ran the meeting. There was their advice that was being taken by the planning manager. It was their advice that eventually made it into their proposal. And in fact, in that meeting itself, it changed from social equity to calling it to local equity, which was a safe way of just saying we're gonna still. We're cognizant of the fact that we need social equity. We're going to call it local equity. So it usurped their responsibility now of having to include any social equity ordinance or components of their new proposal.
And they're already softening you up for the fact that, hey, this isn't going to go the way.
Exactly, it's not going to go the way you wanted it.
Yeah.
And so be ready. And so that's why I became more vocal about social equity recently, and that's why you've heard me or seen me and read about things that I've been saying. Just trying to at least educate, and it is a matter of education. And I have associates in Los Angeles and Long Beach, and they're working on social equity in their respective cities as well, and they've told me the same thing. It's 95% of the time it's you educating your city council. Educated them to the fact that there's so many layers and so much history revolving about cannabis. It's just not like opening a clothing store or a liquor store. There's a culture behind it. There's issues that can be addressed through cannabis, and you have to be cognizant of them. But if they don't know what those issues are, then they just go about it like it's a regular business. And they see dollar signs because they think it's cannabis. They're going to, they even call it, you're going to hit the lottery. Obviously, none of them have been in a cannabis business.
Because not in illegal cannabis in right. California for the last 5 years, because, again, I have to remind people that the legal cannabis market out here in California, it's not dripping with money. It's not like the legacy market or the black market or even with Hollywood, because Hollywood's a powerful machine that puts out all kinds of narratives. And the legal cannabis market is not an easy thing to get into. It's not a cheap thing to get into.
Right.
And it's a resource-heavy industry that you have to get into. Resource on your part.
You think those 3 entities aren't getting their money? They're getting their money.
And
then you have the local.
These guys are getting absolutely.
And then you have the local
BCC,
municipalities, the city. They want to charge. I think it's there's on all the retail sales, and then they want to allocate 1% that's specifically going to a specific fund, and not to mention the regular taxes. Then you have the just getting in, like you said, just getting into the business
So
can cost you a couple $100,000, and you may not even get a license.
Yeah, right.
That's not a lottery.
Well, and that's the thing. And that's the thing is a couple of issues on that, and on any municipality here in California when they start just with the number of how many licenses, I think they should just open the licensing up to whatever the market's going to bear.
Sure.
Because once again, it turns it into just a barrier of entry, because now you're competing for this limited amount, and I don't know, it just seems better for the community to just let the market bear what it's going to bear. It's not like they put a limit on how many liquor stores are going to allow in a town. However many liquor stores your neighborhood can support, that's how many you're going in. That's just the way it is.
Sure.
And another thing that I was really astounded by, the fact of what changed with the Oxnard thing, was that you sent me some material, and before the changes, they were going to charge
$25,000.
$25,000, right?
Just to do not for the licensing. That's once you got once you received your license, you were going to pay.
That was a donation to the city.
Right.
Okay.
One time
donation. All right.
I call it pay to play.
Now, it sounds like bribery, but whatever. We're not going to get caught up into semantics, but what? Okay, $25,000. All right. I can swing that. Some of us can or could. I'm not saying I'm going into.
And remember, it's $17,000 just to go through the licensing process. You're not guaranteed a license.
No,
that's $17,000.
$17,000. Okay. But then it comes back to this recent meeting that $25,000 got changed to $250,000, which blew me the fuck away, because first of all right, how are you going to ask the locals to participate in something and then charge them $250,000
in the middle of the license application process?
In the middle of that. So what really bugs me is that municipalities and even people in the industry are screaming about the legacy market, about the black market, that they want the police and the government to do more to enforce the laws. The best way to really bring in the legacy market is to make the cost of getting in not a barrier of entry. $250,000. If you keep it at $25,000, and then, this is in my opinion, and then just leave open how many licenses the market's going to bear in your town, the black market would take such a hit, because it would be easier for people to come into the industry, and you would have more choice. You would have farmers and producers would have more places to put those products. Therefore, the products become cheaper. You get all of that revenue gets sent to the municipalities. Everything that goes to the black market, because it's so expensive to get into the legal market, people are like, fuck it, let's just grow weed and sell it in the black market. None of that goes to the city. For cities to charge that much and then complain, or for any industry to complain, or any player in the market to complain, hey, this is all about the black market, this is all about illegality, that's killing my potential, is bullshit. It's regulation that's killing it.
Sure.
It's this kind of regulation that's killing it. It's not the guy selling dime bags that's killing you. And we have to put that in perspective. It's a ridiculous. Oxnard has an opportunity, man. They have an opportunity, and I heard you speak, and what you said was, they're basically telling the citizenry of Oxnard that they can be employees, but they can't be business owners. They can't participate fully in the market. That's the wrong message. And again, Oxnard is missing the opportunity. If they're trying to raise $2 million, then leave it at $25,000 and let everybody who can apply. Just increase the numbers. Because that's from what I understood, they're just trying to raise $2.2 million the quickest they can. And it seems like from the fewest people that they have to get involved, which again just sends all of that money, because of the big players, because it's so much, it just sends it out of town. There are no roots for those companies here. Right.
And the people, part of the consultant had brought up the fact, well, we presented this to some of these licensees or who are applicants, and they didn't even bat an eye at this $250,000. Well, of course, they're big investors. These are people who are pouring millions of dollars into dispensary ownership. The local minority, which social equity addresses, it's a bit more of a challenge for him to raise an additional $250,000. Imagine I think there was 8 of the there was 50 applicants for the local dispensaries, of which now they're going to allow 10 licenses, but they're going to reserve 2. So they didn't even increase they increased the amount of licenses that they were going to give by the number that they're going to hold locally.
So it's not like they took them away from big industry. They just said, no, we're going to add 2 more for the locals. 2 more for locals. Because we already promised big industry 8.
Right. So, and they're of the 50, I think they said there was 10 who were, considered local ownership, not mentioning minority. And social equity specifically is geared to help promote and encourage and empower minority ownership. So our hope now is that they will consider some of those local minority-owned applicants and give them precedence over. I know that doesn't sound right or fair, but neither was cannabis prohibition. And it was one of the council members said last year, well, why should today's people pay reparations for something that people did 50 years ago? And I wrote him, and that's why it's important for people to stay engaged in their community, because every email, everything counts, everything matters. They remember this. So I sent him an email and I said, look, you don't think that the guy who was arrested in South Oxnard or in La Colonia 50 years ago for selling weed or for a bag of weed or a joint or whatever, and was incarcerated and maybe sent to prison because of the laws that existed at that time, you don't think that had a generational effect on his family, on his community? Of course it did. And multiply that by how many times that happened in South Oxnard and Colonia or wherever part in anywhere in the world. It does matter generationally to those people. So why not address those issues? Why not build the new industry and incorporate these ordinances that would help right those wrongs, so that money perhaps can go back into that community where that father was missing or that mother was missing, all because of a non-violent cannabis crime. So that's that $250,000 that was going to raise the $2.2 million. They were going to use part of that to renovate a multi-purpose, a multi-service building.
Oh, I read that, a community building.
A community building,
center.
and then to create some facades in downtown Oxnard. Those weren't even programs for people. Now, maybe the building, I mean, you're still just doing something for a building, right? I want programs for those parts of the city. Programs that truly help people. Hire people to do something for the community. A building, they were saying, well, it's old, it looks old. Well, fine. Raise your money some other way. That's something that should have addressed before cannabis. The facades should have been built before cannabis. Cannabis is a well-intentioned plant. Through social equity, we say any money being raised through cannabis revenue should be used for social programs, for things that cannabis prohibition affected in those past generations.
You know what I would like to see, and I've spoken about this before, is I'd like to see some of that cannabis money go towards in-state college tuition.
Ah.
I'd like some of that money
sure.
Because, I mean, let's not forget that California had free in-state college tuition until Reagan. Why can't we have it again? I mean, that's the best way to prop up California.
Sure.
Is give every graduating high school senior that is eligible, give them a 4-year in-state college tuition to the UC system. Let's do it that way. Yeah, man. But again, just to have all this money and revenue go out of town, go to other places where the companies aren't really invested.
Yeah, and that's what's important, because people from the community, social equity addresses that too. In that's why we want locals to own these licenses, because they live here. I was just talking to an applicant yesterday. He lives here. His mom lives here. His sister lives here. His kids go to school here. He lives very close to me, and he knows the needs of the city. He knows all the nonprofit organizations. He knows what parts of the city have been affected most. I want to see him empowered to be able to do something to give back to the community. Do you think the guy who lives in L.A. is going to care about the La Colonia boxing gym? He's not. He doesn't even know about it. When I was at that workshop, a plane flew over. One of the guys goes, "Is there an airport here?"
Yeah.
And I knew, dude, you're not a local. Obviously,
you're not from here.
Yeah, it's a half a mile away, or whatever.
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows there's an airport
Everybody knows,
here.
man.
And that's what was discouraging, was the fact that at that workshop there were people from the outside who were influencing the decision makers, and it was very apparent that that's whose advice they took when they put the proposal together.
Well, it's also when you listen to the city council meeting when they were allowing for comment, you had a couple of out of town businesses call in and say, "Oh yes, no, we support all of this stuff, and yeah, we're going to hire." X percentage amount of local employees. I'm like, well, yeah, that's great, but still all that revenue doesn't stay here.
Yeah, and I'm not even up for hiring that. They said 75%.
Yeah,
I don't think there's that many people knowledgeable about cannabis. I did the math. It's just like almost 200 employees that you would have to employ to meet the 75% for each dispensary, or so about. I don't think there's 200 people that are that educated who could sit across from a patient and tell them about the different strains or whatever products that could help them. And remember, this is a medicine. I would rather them hire knowledgeable people and maybe train local people with that knowledge. I don't think a 75% mandate is the right thing to do.
Well, that just sounds like there's opportunity there for someone to educate, bro.
Yeah, education is important, but to me, remember, cannabis is a healer, and people are going in to find out about something that could help them with their life. So you need to have knowledgeable people there, and I don't think with 75%. I'd rather know that person's across the counter from me knows what they're talking about.
Well, and that's a good point, man. I really didn't think about that, because I did always criticize, especially when I started to see CBD pop up in like CVS and Rite Aid, because I'm walking in and I was like, wait, where's the education?
Sure.
Because some of this stuff, it may not be the CBD or some other ingredient in this stuff could interact with your medication. I mean, where's, all you get is a little pamphlet and here's some CBD.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's a good point, man.
Yeah. So, and those are things that, unfortunately, it is, and I have to. One of the council members has a few of them have started to learn more and more, and trying to learn more and more about just cannabis industry as a whole. And I don't think they realized how many layers of how many layers of information there are out there with regards to the cannabis business.
Yeah,
it is important to engage with your city council wherever you are out there. If it's not legal or if it is already, education and engaging with them is really important, because they do, a few of them will listen, and I do appreciate the ones who have opened their ears to what we've had to say.
So I wonder if it's because, since it is a new industry, that a lot of these things aren't really set down yet, like, let's say, alcohol consumption. Yeah, like you said, that's probably where the education lies, man, where it's needed, is because of that.
Yeah, and it is. And so
because it is a lot. I mean, it is a lot on top of having to be, talking about people's fucked up sidewalks, being a city council member also.
Right.
But it's still on. I mean, is it on them to learn, or is it on us to put the information in front of them? Because the consultants are putting in front of them a certain kind of information as it is. So yeah, I guess it is on us to put the other argument in front of them.
Yeah, it is on us because you have to engage. You have to see what the problem is with your community or your city council, or what the challenges are. If they're not in, if I hadn't brought it up to city council at that time and the planning commission, it would be a moot
probably
point right
more
now.
than likely. Yeah.
It's so now.
Well, people would be complaining, hey, why wasn't there social equity involved?
Right. The city right next to us, they went legal without any type of social equity component whatsoever. The cities, they're doing fine, but they had no.
They could have been doing better.
They probably could have been doing better. But fortunately, the owners of those dispensaries have been very responsive to the needs of the city, and they have donated to certain projects and needs. But they've done a good job, which is great. But that's not always going to happen.
Now, Now, do you think some of that positive gesturing and just the good things that they've done came because there was pressure early on when that happened? Because
the chief of police put the pressure on him. He was an advocate for legalization. His position was, it's going to be legal. Let's just do it right. Let's try to be well intentioned with it. And the chief of police was the one who, I guess you'd say, put the pressure on a lot of these businesses, not actual threatening in any way, but he said, look, we want you to be engaged with the community. Here are the
small
needs.
Community.
Right. And this is, and that area where all those dispensaries are is the safest part of the city, by the way, because everything has cameras, and they call it the Green Mile.
The
and
Port Authority's there.
Yeah. So it's done really good for that small city, and that city is only 4 square miles.
And it's not like they have any more land. They got,
right.
It's not going to get any bigger.
Sure.
So
it does. But, for instance, they ponied up, I think it was $75,000 for a fireworks show last 4th of July. I don't know if it was 25 or 75. Let's say it was 50, right? Fireworks. Okay.
Yeah.
When
the library was closing.
The library is closing. The boxing gym was close to closing. The Performing Arts Center, now this is in Oxnard, was closing. There was other needs, and that fireworks show was for the city of Oxnard. So it was our neighboring city who the dispensaries in that city funded this fireworks show, and they were almost going to do it again this year, but then COVID happened. But come on, that's a lot of money. It could have made a big difference, maybe for 5 or even 10 nonprofit organizations here.
Well, just the fact that the library was going to close,
right?
That really surprised me. And what really surprised me was that people were really defending it against the library, or defending the 4th of July show. That, oh no, we need it more. What about the library? Well, there were all these excuses about why not to let the library was mismanaged and all that. All of that may be true.
Sure.
Just like for the fireworks show, also mismanagement.
Sure.
But I mean, we're going to use those funds to fill which gaps, though? What are we really, an outdoor entertainment show?
They were literally going to blow money.
The outdoor entertainment show, and a lot, one of the arguments was, well, it's also a revenue stream for the city.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's and that's, again, social equity. I'm telling you, social equity addresses so many things. Social equity encourages that you set up a panel separate from city council, separate from any governing body, that could oversee those funds and dictate or help encourage where that money would be spent based on the needs of the community. Social equity does that. And if you're interested in social equity, you can go to the Minority Cannabis Business Association. I didn't create social equity. I didn't even come up with the ordinances. Everything that I encourage the city to follow, or I refer to the Minority Cannabis Business Association.
I thought you were out there dictating.
Man. No, I wish I could. I'd probably be doing, but no, they've done all the work. They have sample ordinances, and they have 10 model ordinances, and they're all included in there. If you read them, you realize how many issues social equity addresses, and that benefits the community. They have a community benefits agreement. They have, and we haven't even talked about bringing law enforcement into the conversation. They have to be involved in the conversation. We don't want them to be pulling people over or being cannabis the reason why they're questioning somebody or detaining somebody. So do officers need to be trained? Well, there's money there to do that if we had a social equity component and we were reserving money for those types of programs. When people have come out of prison and they are trying to re-enter into the workforce, if you're a felon, I don't care if you're a non-violent cannabis felon, you still cannot get a job because you're a felon. So we need to help those persons get their records expunged so that they can come and re-enter into the workforce. Maybe they need training. Those are the type of things that this money should be used for, to really truly help people, not build facades or renovate a multi-purpose building. There's specific needs that cannabis created the challenge or the issues back generations ago that we need to address, and we would have the money to do it if they would just delegate it into the areas that truly help people and not just problems that the city should have solved on its own, but now are looking to cannabis to try to solve it for them.
Again, because there's this really messed up idea that we can just pull money from legal weed.
Sure.
Because at some point, when you keep over-regulating someone or something, or at least overtaxing them, they're just going to go away. And then you're going to be left with everyone's able to buy, as a right, legal weed, but nowhere to buy it legally, so it's all going to go back to the black market, which, again, don't mind the black market, but none of that revenue goes back into the city.
None of it.
Yeah.
So it's a sticky and sweet situation.
Well, the thing is this, though. It can be easier, but a lot of municipalities are pushing it through just for the rush because of COVID. And I get it. There's a lot of holes to be plugged, especially now. And if you're a city like Oxnard that has mismanagement in the past, right now you got to be fucking reeling about it.
Yeah, and what COVID has done is exposed not just cities, but businesses who were performing not to their best, and now everything is magnified. Whatever you did wrong in normal times, it's being exposed now in COVID times. And businesses that were not able to operate during regular times are failing in COVID times, because now every issue they had is being magnified. And I think that's happening all across the country in different cities and municipalities like Oxnard. And it's unfortunate. But again, cannabis is not going to be the saving grace of any municipality, not in the beginning. Oxnard is known for agriculture. I've encouraged people that, or tried to encourage city council to look at it that way. Look, we've been known for various things throughout the decade for beets and strawberries, and we live in a beautiful region that has great weather year round.
It's great climate. Doesn't get hot here.
Yeah, so we can grow cannabis, but of course, it smells and this and that, and they cut. Well, so do onions, and I can smell it when I come down the grade. And not everybody loves onions, but you can smell it.
There's onions. There's a mushroom field.
Yeah, there's a mushroom field. There's spinach, and all that stuff has its own smell that's not nice. But you know what? I like to smell it. I forced myself to like it because I go, look, that's us. That's Oxnard. That's the Oxnard plain, man. That's jobs. That's money. That's our people working. That's us feeding people. Cannabis could be the same way. And until they accept, they talk about being vertically integrated with your licensing. Well, until a city becomes vertically integrated with their industry in cannabis, that's when it can really start to make a difference. When you start allowing cultivation, whether it's indoor or outdoor, you allow processing, you allow manufacturing, you start maybe creating partnerships with the growers and local universities for training or research for medicinal. Then you start making a big difference in a regional economy, right? So until they do that you're not going to solve any problem. You're not going to solve any issues or fund anything and make a huge impact with just a dispensary. Because there's, you ask a dispensary owner, man, they're operating on some thin margins, very thin margins.
Yeah.
And I've talked to them. They say, yeah, well, we have to pay the taxes. In fact, we choose not to pass that cost on to our customers. And then there's other dispensaries who say we pass it on to our customers. And there's a big...
It's a double-edged sword,
right.
Man. They're in a tough spot. They either absorb it, which changes at the very least every 6 months.
Sure.
What it seems like anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And some places, like you said, some places will truly just pass that cost on to the customer, and you can see it. Like I was saying, some places do, some places don't. And like you said, they're thin margins. I mean, because it's something like, I think it's like 42% that cannabis products are taxed at. Now imagine that. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that's real, but I know it's high, right? It's like 30%, 40%. But there has to be a different way. There has to be a different model. Because like you said, just trying to plug all those economic holes with cannabis, it's not going to work. And, I was saying that because these municipalities are trying to push this through because there's such need, we need to pay attention to the details. We can't just accept it saying, yeah, we're going to get weed. It's like, yeah, but you may get very limited weed, or you may get, some fucked up regulations with weed. You may get weed that doesn't allow you to grow at home. I don't care if you're a patient or just somebody who likes to smoke weed. It's a big deal to grow your own weed at home.
It sure is,
and it's a lot of fun too.
It's fun, but mostly it makes it more affordable, and those are things. Of course, we've had no discussion in City Council regarding homegrown. Can you grow at home?
Really?
How many? Yeah, nothing. So we haven't even touched on that. And that's a part of social equity too. That's why we have to involve law enforcement.
Well, because it's also a part of social equity because you do have public housing.
Public housing. If you get caught smoking or growing, you're out.
They could.
And they could take your kids away too.
Yes, they could take your kids away.
So
and if you're on probation,
right,
all that stuff
there's
just
a
goes
lot
together.
of things that have to be addressed, and that's and they don't. And to the defense of some of the city councilmen that I've engaged with, they had no idea. They hadn't thought that deeply about it.
Well,
right?
and
they said, I never thought about that.
And that's what I was saying, that it's a new industry, that there are these things that are coming up to where, because it's not like you're becoming a city councilman. I mean, you become a council person. Alcohol's already been established. The parameters are there. You know what's going on. There aren't any surprises. With cannabis, all this new industry, all of these new concerns and all these new stakeholders, they have to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And again, it's up to us to put different information in front of them, because the consultants are putting in information.
They're rubber stamping
that's best
from
for
something
them,
else out there that
this
they
worked
did.
over here.
Exactly. And they actually say that. Well, we talked over here and we saw this. They're just going by what they've already done. Yeah. And there are very, very few truly successful social equity programs nationwide. But we're not giving up the fight, and there are people like me all across the country working who know way more than I do. Unfortunately, we just have, Oxnard is not a huge city, but I'm going to keep fighting for social equity, even if none of these ordinances come through in the beginning. We can continue the fight because they're going to be opening up for more licensing, or there are some other cities around in Ventura County that will open up for licensing. So we'll just continue the fight over there. I wanted Oxnard to be the beacon of social equity, the model city, and we had that opportunity to do that, but unfortunately, where they're headed, it doesn't look like not even a beacon will be not even a flashlight.
So where does that vote lie now? Is that it? There's no...
Well, they took the proposal and they got feedback from the community. So the next round, which is back, I think the first part of October 8th, they'll actually vote on that proposal. So in these next few weeks, I'm trying to, again, I'm having to educate the community as well. I set up a Facebook page called Social Equity Oxnard, and you can check it out. And I'm really just trying to get information out there about social equity, what it is. And I really am not surprised, but disheartened to know how little people know about cannabis, about social equity, they just want to get, they're like city council. They just want to get it fired up. But the reason you need to put the brakes on and reanalyze this is because we don't want this to again get into a situation where it's affected people generationally, and now you'll never be able to get this time back.
No, that's it. I mean, no, this is your opportunity. It's really hard to dial back any kind of regulation. It's really hard to dial back any kind of anything like that. This is the opportunity.
Right.
This is the time to do it, especially since there is an urgency. Yeah, we do have to slow people down and say, no, wait, hold on.
Yeah, let's do this right. I
know all these things, that all of these holes have to be plugged, but you got to understand, we should do this in an order.
Sure.
So I know you're affiliated with High Farms. How does this affect you guys? Because I knew you guys were waiting to launch.
Well, High Farms is based out of Port Hueneme. It's the neighboring city. So the license, High Farms license is based out of Port Hueneme. So that's where we operate from. But we haven't been able to launch yet either, even though we've held the license now for quite some time, because the city came in midstream and analyzed the building and determined that we had to do some renovations on the ceiling and on the floor because of the occupant below us, and so they've again issues from the city have prevented us from being able to launch. But we have everything in place and ready to go. And High Farms Delivery will be working Ventura County, but it's the neighboring city from Oxnard, Port Hueneme, that 4 square mile city that we spoke of earlier, where the Green Mile exists.
Right.
And it's that same team that is going to be coming up in, and we applied for a license in Oxnard as well. I'm just a very small stakeholder in that organization, more on the marketing side and the advocacy side. But for me, the most important thing is advocacy, because everybody in the cannabis industry, and I like to say this because we're all in this together. I don't see as this dispensary versus that dispensary versus that dispensary. We are going to be working together.
We're all co-conspirators.
Exactly. We're all co-conspirators. We need to look out for each other. It doesn't matter who gets the licenses. We need to work to make sure that it's done right here locally, that it's local owners, minority owned. I know a young lady who applied for a license. I hope she gets her license. And so it really is a fight for everybody. So even though I'm part of a team that has applied, hey, we might not get the license. We've gone through the stages and have been, we have an interview in the next few weeks, and it'll all be basically contingent upon that interview. But I'm such a small stakeholder, I won't even be involved in that interview. So it's interesting to see how it's all going to develop. I hope it develops in a direction that is good for the community and that's good for our local cannabis fans and owners and investors. And but there are no guarantees, and it's going to be up to the staff of the city to determine who they're going to let come in and make a change in the community with cannabis legalization.
Yeah, right on. Okay, I was just curious. Because I know you guys were having some issues launching, and I was wondering if it was. I didn't realize you guys were in Port Hueneme.
Yeah, it is in Port Hueneme.
Right on. Well, hey Rodney, dude, I appreciate you taking the time, brother.
Of course.
That was awesome for you to hang out, man.
All the time, man. And I'm glad that things are starting to open back up, because that means hopefully we'll be able to start doing some traveling again. We'll have some new places to go, new stories to tell. I'm really getting tired of these virtual cannabis events. They don't work very well, man. And everything's Zoom, and it's just, cannabis is one of those things you need to be there. You need to see people. You need to engage. You need to learn. And
it's a community activity.
Yeah, it is. It is.
From the conversation to just, I don't think there's going to be any more joint circles for a while. I think everyone's going to have to show up at their own joint, but still, we can get around in a circle and smoke a joint.
Sure.
But yeah, no, dude, these virtual events have been, I don't dig them either.
Yeah.
I can't wait for it to open up also.
Yeah. No, it has forced people to stay home and listen to podcasts like this.
It has.
And hopefully it's that will stay, because education is key and advocacy is key. And I'm not saying that anything I'm doing here locally in Oxnard is special, because every city, every person who's listening out there, there's a reason. You're a cannabis fan. Remember, there's something that you can do in your community to help support the legalization of cannabis. Whether it's if you're going to get fully involved with social equity, or just be a voice and voice your concern, because there, like you said earlier, there is no turning back the clock in regulations, and you really want this to go the way you want it. So don't be afraid to engage with your city council. Write them emails, attend the city council meetings, and let your voice be heard. Otherwise, somebody from the outside is going to come in and dictate how you get your weed, and it's probably not going to be the way you want it. So
yeah, that is true. Somebody will tell you how you're going to get your weed, and if you're not there, you're going to be pissed when you realize.
Right. And you do have the opportunity, especially if you're not legal yet. You do have the opportunity, and if it's legal, if it is already legal, there is still work that you can do.
Oh yeah, everywhere.
It just changes. The scope just changes. But be engaged in your community. That's the most important thing, because what you do today is going to have an effect for generations, for either your own family or friends, but people who come in after you. and hopefully you've made an impact in your city so that future generations can benefit from what cannabis is meant to be, and that's a healer.
Yeah, right on, Rodney. Hey, so we're going to get out of here because we're outside of the Rodney Media Studios, and someone's doing yard work.
Yeah.
No, but also because that's all I have to share with you guys today, man. So, Rodney, can you tell people where they can find you?
You can, I really want people to go to that Facebook page, the Social Equity Oxnard. I've kind of starting to put all my cannabis information there. I had my own personal Facebook page. That mix kind of personal with cannabis, but social equities and cannabis information is so important. I'm always about trying to teach people. So Social Equity Oxnard would be the best way to find me or leave me a message.
Far out. Okay. Well, as always, everybody, if you have a question or a comment about this episode, you can send us an email. That is inmygrow@gmail.com. And don't forget to leave a rating and a review wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to the website, inmygrow@gmail.com, and then go over to YouTube. That is YouTube/InMyGrowShow. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like I said, in a couple of days, the video show should be up. And yeah, that's it, everybody. I will talk to you guys later. Rodney, brother, thanks a lot again.
Thank you for having me, Alex. It's always fun.
Everybody, I love you all very much. And remember to always grow, learn, and teach.